HRN listeners. As we celebrate our 15th year, we are deepening our commitment to giving voice to the next generation of food systems storytellers, and we need your help. Our internship and fellowship programs help activate new possibilities for underrepresented and underestimated young people through experiential journalism, audio engineering, and production training. Through these unique programs, HRN helps food equity stewards build essential workforce readiness skills that expand their potential and foster economic mobility. Please consider supporting these critical programs. And with a minimum donation, you can be entered to win a dinner for two at an amazing restaurant in one of 8 cities and tickets to a concert at a great venue in one of those cities. We have incredible partners across the country who have donated, as they also share our passion for helping to educate the next generation of food systems storytellers. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. And make sure you donate before March 31st. Thank you.
Today's program is proudly brought to you by Whole Foods Market. Visit WholeFoodsMarket.com or download the Whole Foods Market app to learn more and find the store nearest to you.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. We're a member-supported food radio network broadcasting over 35 weekly shows live from Bushwick, Brooklyn. Join our hosts as they lead you through the world of craft brewing, behind the scenes of the restaurant industry, inside the battle over school food, and beyond. Find us at heritageradionetwork.org.
Welcome to the Grape Nation, your weekly wine journey. Our guest is Ryan Arnold, Divisional Wine Director for Let Us Entertain You Enterprises in Chicago, proprietors of over 120 restaurants in Chicago and around the country. We'll talk to Ryan about the Chicago restaurant scene, New York versus Chicago Psalms, and more. We'll taste the Sangiovese blend from Tuscany for our weekly wine sip. I'm your host, Sam Benrubi. Stay with us for the Grape Nation on the Heritage Radio Network. We bring wine to the people. Ryan Arnold, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, attended the University of Montana, did a semester abroad in Turin, Italy, fell in love with wine, and never turned back. Ryan is a divisional wine director of Let Us Entertain You Enterprises, one of Chicago and the country's most successful restaurant groups, owning a diversity of restaurants. Ryan oversees the wine programs at some of Let Us's finest restaurants, each focused on a different cuisine and wine program. Ryan was also a 2015 Star Chef Rising Star, which is also why he's in New York. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
So great to be here. Thanks for fitting me in.
It's my pleasure. All right, so Ryan, I want our listeners to know who we're talking to. So give me a quick background on your journey in life, wine, restaurants that got you currently back to Let Us Entertain You in Chicago.
Yeah, definitely. Born and raised in and around Chicago. And went to school out in Missoula, Montana. Loved the mountains. And I actually did do a semester in Rome as well.
And Rome?
And then,
but the Turin thing was right too?
Turin for sure,
okay.
Yeah. I went up there for wine, of course, right outside of Barolo, and then the mountains.
How many kids in your graduating high school class went to Montana?
None.
None.
Maybe
okay.
one.
Just curious.
Maybe
All right.
one.
Continue, please.
Yeah, and I did. That's when I got the bug. Came back to Chicago in 2004.
From Italy, you got
From Italy,
right.
Yep, from Italy. Actually, was over in Greece for quite a while, as you do as a college student. You travel a bunch when you're
right.
in Italy. And was in Greece for the summer, came back, and then got a job waiting tables at a Let Us Entertain You restaurant with Belinda Chang. She was a wine director.
Who's a very prominent wine person now. In Chicago, right?
In Chicago, yep.
Right.
She was here for probably, a decade or so, I think.
Right.
So I worked with her, and it was an all-Italian wine list, maybe 350 selections. no domestic wine.
Wow.
No cocktails, really no beer. And you had to know, I mean, with Italian wine, you have to know how to pronounce the grapes, right? So if you know how to speak Italian, you're already one up. So I transitioned into wine sales. I didn't call myself a sommelier back there. It was 04, 05, so a wine steward, I guess is what I was.
You were on the restaurant thing with Belinda, left there, and went into the sales, import distributor side.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I didn't like the hours of working the floor.
Retail.
Yeah. Yeah. Never did that.
Yeah. So you work with a couple of good companies, right?
Yeah. So after that, I worked for Divino, Chicago-based company. They, I guess, are most well known for Austrian. So they had, hands down, the best portfolio back in the early 90s, 2000s, with producers like Prager, Rudy Piechler, Crocker. Yeah, definitely. So they had Mark de Grazia, too. So big Italian book, but really Austrian focused. And then Weinbo. Then I went to work for Weinbo.
Which is huge.
Huge, yep. They opened a Chicago wholesale branch in 2012.
So as big as
2010.
Weinbo was then, they didn't have that branch in Chicago.
Right, yeah. They were just up here in the Northeast.
So you did the 9 to 5 sales.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun while it lasted.
How long did you do it?
That was 2 years. 2 years.
So you woke up one day and said, I'd rather be walking around at 11 p.m. What happened?
Absolutely. And it was... getting into sales was fun because I got to travel. I was a regional director, so I got to travel around the country and got to go in and out of a lot of beautiful restaurants and met some fun people. What about
wineries they represented? Did you do any European trips or not?
Yeah, I know, absolutely. That's how I was first, I guess really why I was intrigued in sales is, you open a great restaurant and all the importers and winemakers are coming in to support you. And I just started to talk to the gentleman's name is Seth Allen that owned Divino. And he's like, yeah, a part of this job is you actually get to go travel to Austria, to Tuscany. It's like, all right, sign me up.
Wow. So you got to do all that. All right, so let's talk about, wait, we're not done. So that brings you do the business side for a couple of years, and then you go back into the restaurant biz.
Yeah, I got really lucky with that.
How?
I got a call. I was at a little Cuban restaurant having lunch, and at the time, I had a couple Let Us Entertain You restaurants as my accounts. I was selling to them, and it was a text, rather, from Rich Melman, the founder of the company, his two sons, RJ and Jared. They texted me and said, hey, can you come downtown now? We have some questions we'd like to ask you. It's like, oh, shit, I'm in trouble. I didn't ship wine. Long story short, I go down, meet with them, basically drop what I'm doing. Like, hey, we want to bring you back aboard. You've been gone for about almost 10 years now. Would you like to come on board and be wine director, help educate the staff with all of our restaurants that we're opening?
Nice.
It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't really have to think twice about that.
Wow.
So that was 2012. That was maybe February. And I said, for sure, but I'm going on a trip to France with Bobby Ketcher to the Rhone Valley. So after that, I'm totally yours.
That's great. So when you got back, you started doing what? You did the education, but were you in certain restaurants? I mean, you took on what responsibilities?
Yeah, man. Back then, it was 3 restaurants. Completely. The best part about my job is I'm in a myriad of different restaurants.
We'll
all
talk
having
about
different
that.
cuisine. Yeah.
I'll get to that.
So that was 3 restaurants.
Right.
Just 3 restaurants, Italian, American, and a French bistro. So I set up the list there and did the training.
Okay. So we'll talk about that. I wanted to, so we're up to speed, right?
Yeah.
All right. So Chicago was just selected as the best restaurant city in the country by Bon Appetit magazine.
I saw it.
No slouch magazine. In your mind, is that a long time coming?
Yes.
I mean, recognition-wise. Why?
I mean, we've been on the map for quite a while in terms of fine dining. I think with Trotters and Alinea, of course. But I think Grace. I think what happened recently, though, I think what's happening out here in Bushwick, but in neighborhoods kind of on the periphery.
Give me an example, like West Loop or something?
Even further, where I live, Logan Square,
okay.
Bucktown. When I was reading that magazine, it was just almost 90% of what they mentioned from bars to restaurants were within walking distance of my house in Logan Square.
So would you equate that in New York, all the restaurants used to be in Manhattan? You know, now they're in Williamsburg, they're in Greenpoint, they're in Fort Greene.
Yeah, I think so.
They're out in Queens. It's spreading out from what people perceived as the restaurant center.
Absolutely.
Right. So how has that affected, you know, how sort of you handle things now? I mean, do you feel that there's more opportunities, you know, for restaurants to open, neighborhoods? I mean, are you seeing is that what, you know, this means? The recognition sort of spurns growth and all that?
No, absolutely. And I think these periphery neighborhoods, too, there's a smaller barrier to entry. I mean, the rents. Look at our Manhattan is, I guess, River North, the neighborhood.
That's like the fancy, nice,
super
residential
expensive.
And traffic and all of that. Okay.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So you've been to New York before, and you were here for a few days. Do you see any differences between the restaurant and wine scene in New York and Chicago? And because you're from Chicago, I'm asking you that, but I'm sure you traveled to other cities. I mean, you know, I'm so ethnocentrically stuck in New York, and, you know, this is kind of what I eat and feed and drink, you know, all the time. And I travel too. But working it, I mean, is there a difference, or is it all the same? I mean, is there a different hospitality? Is there a different feel? Is there a different approach, or it's universal?
It's quite similar. You know, I spent a lot of time in LA too, and here and in Chicago, hospitality is at the top of their game here. I think it's warm, very professional service too, which you don't see in other cities. But Chicago and New York have that similarity. From a wine perspective, quite different.
Okay, so let's get into that a little.
Yeah, I think what New York is nailing right now, more than really anywhere else I've seen, is exceptionally curated wine lists, but in a pretty casual atmosphere.
Right. That's sort of, you know, a mutual friend of ours, John Patterson, at the Frankie's Group, has put a lot of time into curating a list in an environment with great food, but casual. That's what you're alluding to, right?
Yeah, doing an incredible job there. And then also the team, you know, Robert and Grant and Daniel over at Pasquale Jones and Charlie Bird.
And Charlie Bird. Same thing, incredible food. That's the wave.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that is. I think that's the way forward for sure.
I mean, Danny Meyer, we had Katie Morton on from Union Square Hospitality. They extended Marta, the pizza place, into a fried snack and wine bar.
Really?
Vini Fritti, it's called.
Okay.
So it's an extension of that.
Martina is awesome. I was in their new pizza spot.
Yeah.
I mean, Roman pizza, and half bottles of Zimonnet.
It's a pretty cool idea.
And you get a bag of potato chips, by the way.
Oh, you do?
When you order champagne, yeah.
So what about access to wines? I mean, does Chicago have the access to wines that a New York or a San Francisco does? I mean, that's again an ethnocentric question, because why wouldn't you? But, you know, you live it. So can you get what you want, or sometimes it doesn't get to you?
Sometimes it doesn't get to us. I'll tell you what, though. We definitely have access to allocated wines. When they come out in New York and San Francisco, they're gobbled up right away. In New York, or in Chicago, allocated wines seem to stick around a little longer. So we actually have access to similar quantities of wine. However, the buying is very frustrating in Chicago. Here, you can buy
by laws. Or
by laws.
You're bound to do it a certain way.
No consignment. You know, some of the best restaurants I've ever been in San Francisco, they don't own all their wine. It's consigned from a collector. And then here, too, I was just talking to a buddy that runs
consignment always from the collector, or can it be from the importer or distributor? It's got...
I don't think it is a lot.
It's collector.
Collector, for sure, a collector.
So Veritas and Crew in New York were two of the biggest collectors in the world, and the list was basically that. You can't do that.
Can't do that in Chicago. Not saying it's not done.
Right.
It's not legal.
Right.
And then also, too, you can buy a pallet of wine here for your restaurant, 56 cases, and store it off-site. You know, one of my biggest challenges is you're constrained to square footage.
So wait, so by law you have to keep the wine on premise?
Exactly. So it has to be
That's
invoiced
an
and
Illinois
shipped.
law or a Chicago law?
That's the state of Illinois.
Jesus, I mean, there's so many restaurants that we were just, casual, cool places with good lists. They don't have the space to do that.
One of the great wine directors here, Jason Wagner. He spent some time in Chicago, Union Square, and he's funny because he can find a wine and he's like, I want all of it, and now he can do it because he can buy 40 cases, keep it off site, and ship 2 or 3 cases a week into his restaurant.
So even a Let Us Entertain You, which is like mega company, a lot of restaurants. I mean, they could build a warehouse. You can't.
No.
God. So how does that affect restaurant by restaurant? Because size varies, menu varies, what you could do. Is that part of the configuration? Like, I can't go crazy because I don't have the space, or you push that aside?
You have to get very creative. Yep. You have to turn closets into wine storage. I mean, it could be worse. It could be Portland. Portland is a exclusively COD city. So restaurants in Portland are ordering a couple times a week because they just don't have the cash to place a $5,000 invoice. Because here and in Chicago, it's a 30-day term.
Wow.
So, yeah,
that
it could be worse. Could be worse.
Yeah. Does that affect, like, if something special or cool came up? You have a friend who's an importer. He goes, listen, I got 6 cases of this. I got to get rid of them. Take 2 or 3, and it's a killer wine. You don't have the space. I mean, do you have to pass on stuff like that, or you'll figure it out?
Usually I'll figure it out. Yep, and we can definitely spread it across a couple restaurants.
Yeah. I didn't realize that. That's a difficult thing. All right, so tell us what the hell you do over at Let Us Entertain You. First of all, give me a quick... I don't know if there's anything like Lettuce in New York. I mean, there's a lot of chef-driven companies. I mean, Union Square Hospitality, not as many restaurants. Take Shake Shack out, Michael White, the Marais Group, Andrew Carmelini, all those guys. There's nothing as big as Lettuce. Tell us, what Lettuce is first, and then...
Yeah, for sure. I think the closest is definitely Union Square Hospitality Group,
right.
And even... Danny wrote, when he wrote his book, he actually mentioned
he did,
Rich Melman.
He's a Midwest guy.
Yeah, from St. Louis, exactly. And then he's got this philosophy on hiring for personality. Like, at Let Us Entertain You, it started in 1971 by a gentleman named Rich Melman, who is, by the way, still works every single day. And we have over 100 restaurants, mainly Chicago, but quite a bit of a presence in D.C., a little bit in California, Vegas for sure. But it's the 51-49% rule where we believe, if you've got the personality, we can bring you in and then teach you up.
Right. So that's the company. Now, you specifically, you're a divisional wine director, so it's so big, it's tough for one guy to probably oversee the wine program and do it right.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
So how does it shake out what you do? You have responsibilities to certain restaurants?
Exactly. So say there's 100 restaurants. There are different groups, different divisions. One division might be 15 restaurants, and then that is essentially owned and operated by a group of managing partners and Let Us Entertain You. And then another division, like for instance, we have probably our most recognizable restaurant is Joe's Stone Crab.
Right.
DC, Vegas, and Chicago, and that's one separate division. They have their own wine director that I really don't talk to, maybe a couple times a year.
Is that sort of an entrepreneurial play?
Like,
let these groups, get management involved, owner-operators, do your own wine? Is that what it sounds like?
That is exactly what it is.
So that's a good thing.
Competing against them. We have restaurants in Chicago. One of our restaurants, Summer House Santa Monica and Stella Barra Pizzeria, that's one restaurant that sits next to an oyster bar that's owned and operated by a different group of Lettuce. And you better bet we're competing, right, for guests in the seats.
Right. I mean, it's the doors are open. Screw them. You want their customers. Yep. That's sort of an interesting, setup in the sense that it's, highly competitive. So let's be specific for a minute. What type of restaurants are you overseeing? Because I think the fun thing about that is, my guess, it's a diversity of types of restaurants, which is fun for you as far as, setting up and designing wine programs.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. I mean, we have a barbecue place called Bub City that has 2 to 4 wines, so I'll set that up. 2 to
4 total?
Yeah, that's...
Okay.
I guess it's kind of like Shake Shack.
Zinfandel or what?
Zinfandel, a little Syrah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then other than that, we have... Yeah, rosé is quite good, too. We have... everything in between. Some of my bottle lists go up to 200 selections. I don't really have anything over that. And then everywhere in between. Definitely, I've been focusing more recently on more casual dining.
Right.
I'm out of fine dining. I haven't worn a suit in probably 2 years.
So the classic on the floor Somme suit look, it's not necessarily going away, but we're moving away from that, and you don't need to be doing that.
Yeah, it's not for me.
But there's a few restaurants, I guess like Everest or whatever, where the service is more of that, right?
Oh my word, yeah. But that's a bow tie type of place.
Yeah. I would assume that you've been responsible in opening some places.
Yeah, I think I've got probably 15 restaurant openings under my belt.
Under your belt.
Yeah.
How many different restaurants? I'm sure there's some dupes in there.
Yeah, there are a couple different, some duplicates. Just about 12
What
in 3 cities, in 3 markets.
start from scratch? I mean, you sit there with the chef, the cuisine, the type of market, and you determine the wine list. How do you go about that?
Yeah, that's something I learned as I went along. That's definitely the process is talk about the concept and the cuisine. Market is very interesting, too, that I'm just learning about because I'm making wine lists in Hollywood and Santa Monica, different neighborhoods in Chicago, and then probably the most frustrating talk about legalities and purchasing wine is Bethesda, North Bethesda, Maryland, Montgomery County. It's all regulated by the county. So everything is
like Pennsylvania's a
Oh, my
state
goodness,
wine
yeah.
thing. Everything there's through the county.
Everything's 20%.
God, it's so archaic.
The county just takes it. They raise the wine 20% and ship it.
It's archaic, right?
Absolutely.
So it must be a fun thing to put together. I mean, that's the interesting thing that people don't realize. I mean, the allure and romance of wines and pairing and the food, is a little overshadowed by the fact that a guy like you who's in multiple, or the company's in multiple markets, you're subjected to so many different kinds of, restrictions and regulations, including the size thing and all of that. All right, so you like to create wine programs. I guess you could say that a guy like you is interested in wines that are alive, exciting, dynamic. You don't want to be a boring guy. So let's use those adjectives and let me tap into a guy like you who's served, drank, ordered a lot of wines. Let's talk about currently your favorite wines around the world for restaurants, for drinking, for turning people on that you feel are alive, exciting, and dynamic. Give me some specific wines, regions. What's floating your boat now?
Oh, man. So recently we opened up a Mediterranean restaurant called Ema, and I've been tasting a lot of, talk about alive, a lot of crisp, high-toned white wines.
Not just Greek.
No, not just Greek. I'm talking coastal Italy.
Right.
Places like maybe Liguria. Yeah, Ischia.
Like Vermentino
yeah.
and stuff like that.
They call Pigato up there.
Pigato.
I'm really excited about
So I'm
Vermentino.
answering the question. So crisp white Ligurian, Italian coastal wines, which specifically are called Pigato or Vermentino.
Right.
Keep going.
And then Corsica right now.
Which is a French island, but off of Italy.
Absolutely.
What do you like there?
Right there, some red wines from the Nulucha grape. It's high.
What kind of grape?
The grape there's called Nulucha.
Spell.
It's Nieuullicu, I
Wow.
believe. Yeah.
And red grape?
Red grape.
What kind of characteristic?
Yeah, savory red, almost kind of like a frappato.
Okay.
Super crisp, a little bit more tannic though.
Is it a good food wine?
It's absolutely a good food wine. So that's what
And reasonably priced?
Yeah, probably under 20-ish retail.
Okay, that's a good price point.
Yeah, and I'm trying to find more of the easy drinking, lighter textured, just with my diet now, just more like veggie friendly styles of wine.
What all right, so Italy, white, Italy, Corsica. Get out of Italy for a second. Anything else?
Yeah, Chenin
Interesting.
Blanc right now, actually. I've been drinking a lot of Chenin from
Loire?
Loire and actually Stellenbosch. I recently was in South Africa, yep. So I'm checking out Sanso, too. Sounds kind of weird, but Sanso from Chile. Spent some time down in the
What is
Ipata
that?
and Maule. So, Sanso is predominantly found in Provence. Most
Right.
Provençal rosés are based off that red grape. That one, though, is super lean, crisp, kind of tart red fruit. Another high-toned red that I'm really into now.
Good food wine?
For sure, a good food wine.
So everything you pretty much named is not an expensive, fancy schmancy wine. They're good food wines. Are they readily available? Like at a good wine store in Brooklyn or Manhattan or neighborhood Chicago, you could find some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of the theme I've been going into. I've tasted the classics for a decade, and collected wine and sold it. But
what do you categorize as the classics? Tuscan wine.
Yeah, Tuscan wine, Barolo, Bordeaux, Burgundy, Northern Rhone.
Okay.
Yeah.
The classic wine.
Rioja.
Yeah. Do you do a lot of service of those wines, or because you're going casual or price is an issue, are you moving away from that, or you were never there that much?
No, I'm still serving those wines.
Okay, and you need to have them for...
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have to look for like value Bordeaux, or you make sure you have some names on some of the lists?
You have to have the names. And value Bordeaux, Bordeaux, the region, is spending so much money right now trying to show people that Bordeaux can be less than $20 and delicious. But it's so appellation and name-driven.
Yeah.
Bordeaux is they're having a challenge there. But
there's that, I don't know what, Bordeaux, like consortium, where they're pushing, the value-oriented and lesser-known chateaus.
I was with them last night talking about it.
They're doing a pretty good job, and I'm sure you would know better than anyone. There's some good wines in there.
Oh, yeah.
For value and all that. All right, so any other thing that's driving you crazy that you're liking right now?
Right now, I've been spending a ton of time in California, and I'm really getting into some of the
for wine producers. Or for business?
Business and then wine.
Okay.
Naturally down in Santa Barbara,
which is stacked with wineries.
Oh
now.
My gosh, there's some really fun Gamay coming out of there, some Chenin as well. Just they're moving past Pinot Noir. Syrah GSM blends too.
Any specific guys you're liking there?
Yeah, for sure. I love Tyler.
Okay.
What Tyler's doing in Santa Rita Hills. Ludi.
Lieudit.
Yep.
Two words.
Place.
That's Eric Railsback, I think.
It is the man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah.
Eric Railsback.
Yeah, and good value wines.
Cab Franc.
Yeah, that's Santa Barbara, you said?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's an area to really... I think you and I could tell our listeners, if you think about a romantic trip to Napa or Sonoma, you could have just as much fun in Santa Barbara, right?
Oh, I'm sending people there all the time now. I'm like, listen, you fly into L.A., it's an hour drive north.
Yeah, I've drank a lot of the wines. I just haven't been there in a while. All right, so speaking of wine and making wine, you've been involved in projects where you've made some wines. Tell me where you're at now, because it's involved you, it's involved the restaurants. Mm-hmm. What's up with that?
Yeah, probably where I played the biggest role was up in two wineries, I guess, at Scribe in Carneros. And
Great
then
winery.
Awesome winery. Even better people, too,
yeah.
The Mariani brothers. And then up in Willamette Valley, Brooks. Been doing some one-off Riesling labels with them and just released a Pinot Noir.
Okay.
Small, like a pallet, 56 cases.
So is that Ryan putting that out in the market or using lettuce as a vehicle or both?
A little bit of both. Yeah, it's really just learning more about how that juice gets in the bottle. And like, for instance, Pinot Noir, we tasted 15 different clones to make the final assemblage of Pinot Noir.
Oh, you did your homework.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was fun. And, we sell some of them in the restaurants, but most of them are broad market, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
And then I think off air you mentioned to me a Prosecco.
Yeah, Let Us Entertain You is working with Juliana Rancic. She's one of our partners in RPM, the R in RPM. We have one in D.C., two in Chicago. And
I forgot that. That's a Let Us Entertain You, and that's Juliana Rancic.
Exactly. Her husband, Bill, is from Chicago.
One of the original you're fired, not fired guys, right?
Yep. And he actually went to the Loyola Rome, too, and we went to the same school together. But she released her wine. It's called Juliana Prosecco, and that's served in our restaurants and elsewhere, too. It's broad market.
So you could push a decent amount of wine through a successful restaurant, right? Hundreds of cases through the year. That's kind of a cool setup.
It's kind of what, who mastered it is Bastianich, right?
Yeah. They were making wines up in Friuli, I think.
Right.
So that's interesting. So you're going to stay with the wine thing. I mean, as far as what you're doing, it's a nice part. It complements everything.
Yeah, it's fun. It's just a different expression, artistic, being able to try.
Do you have your eye on something different? I mean, you said you're doing a little Riesling, which is fun. Some favorite is Riesling.
Of course.
Pinot. You want to try anything else, or you see what happens?
Either Nebbiolo or Sangiovese.
Okay. Grown in California or?
No, in Barolo or
good.
down in
Great. So
in
you're gonna
Chianti.
I hate to tell you, you're going to have to make a trip there and do some research.
I'll be there in December.
Okay. So there could be something coming up after the new year or soon after that.
Absolutely.
All right. So last thing I want to talk to you about, and then we're going to take a break, and I want to subject you to our wine list, is you started something that's pretty cool and interesting called Squire Wine Company.
Yes.
That's not really a wine company, right?
No, I don't even know. I call it kind of a marketing agency.
Yeah. So tell me, because it's a nice community concept and all that.
Yeah, it was a friend, Steve Morgan, who was a former somm here in New York for a number of years. And when he came back to Chicago, he's like, wow, there's a lot of wines, specifically California, that aren't here in Chicago. A lot of what's happening is these new winemakers, like maybe a Dan Petrowski from Massican or Michael Cruz, whom you know, from Ultramarine, they start their business predominantly DTC, direct-to-consumer sales, and
Right.
they're selling throughout the broad market in California, and then, of course, they come to New York.
They skip Chicago.
They skip Chicago.
So my earlier question is access. That's sort of a more drilled down answer. I mean, both those guys and maybe Steve Mathiasen are
There's another one,
very
right?
cool rock stars, and they're flying over Chicago. They're doing direct to consumer, which is a lot of money. They get to L.A., San Francisco, or the San Francisco
Yep.
restaurants, and then they get to New York, and then you get to pick.
And it was very difficult. We had to call them several times and say, listen, the reason we wanted to do it was really bring the Chicago wine scene, not to say we were trying to change it, but Steve's like, listen, these wines are great in restaurants. Dan, can you just sell us 5 cases of wine? Mathiasen, can you sell us 15 cases of wine? And we're
So how
legally-
did Squire play a part in that?
So then too, the other issue we had was in Chicago. You may have heard this, but tastings. There are a lot of times tastings aren't well attended, whether it's a lunch or it's a trade tasting. So what we wanted to do was, and we felt bad for wineries
Not
and
well
distributors.
attended in Chicago?
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
in New York, it's, I've been to a lot, and some of them are crazy, and some are more intimate. Most are well attended.
Like Portugal, Wines of Portugal just did an event here,
Right.
And they were complaining. One of their seminars in Chicago, there were 150 RSVPs and 70 showed up. So what we did was we started a newsletter, essentially, because it was our impression that the word wasn't getting out to everybody. Maybe just the somm or one manager. So what we did, we started a newsletter to the whole community in Chicago. We collected an email, made a database, and then in that newsletter, we also talked about these new California producers.
So you're able to kind of get the word out.
Right.
Help the market, help the trade and industry and all of that.
100%.
And, I mean, tangibly, you take a Portuguese tasting where half the people show up. Have you seen through the efforts of Squire, results? I
Yeah.
mean, it's helped. There's a buzz. People get their info from there.
And it was very cool. We've since stopped the newsletter because I found out having that was essentially beginning. It was more than a hobby. It was almost a second job. So I stopped the newsletter. But I'd get emails and texts from people saying, "Hey, thanks so much for sending that out. I wouldn't have no idea that tasting was going on."
Right. So currently,
We're still bringing in the wines.
right.
And if you think about it too, a lot of these California winemakers, it's their second job, right? So for instance, you've got Dan Petrowski maybe at a place, Larkmead, and then he's making Massican on the side. He's
And
one
this
person.
band of vintners, he's got a third project. Yeah, I mean, look at Thomas Rivers.
Yep.
Is it Thomas Rivers? Like 40 wineries.
Chris Pittenger too with
Yeah.
a winery called Grovant. But Steve and I basically said, you guys don't know the landscape in Chicago. Let us represent you, and we can get you in front of the right people.
That's great.
But we don't make any money. It's just kind of a fun project here. And
Well, you're helping the overall cause.
Yeah.
That's
And
what
that's
it's evolved to,
Yeah.
which is a good thing for the market and the industry. And, it's a good feel for the winemakers and all of that. So that's Squire Wine Company. All right, Ryan, we're talking to Ryan Arnold. Ryan Arnold's in from Chicago. It's good to talk to a guy from Chicago. When we come back, I'm going to just grill him with 2 more questions, and then we're going to do the wine list. You're listening to the Grape Nation on Heritage Radio. We'll be right back after these messages.
Today's program is proudly brought to you by Whole Foods Market. Whole Foods Market believes in seeking out local, fresh, and seasonal food and in supporting local farmers, makers, and the community as a whole, economically and agriculturally. Whole Foods Market believes in food that is vivid and colorful, fresh and full of nutrients. Food that connects you to your body, the seasons, and to nature. Food that helps you do more, sleep better, and wake up happier. Found in over 400 locations throughout the United States, Whole Foods Market only sells food that meets their standards, which means no artificial colors, flavors, preservatives, or sweeteners, ever. Whole Foods Market believes in real food. Visit WholeFoodsMarket.com or download the Whole Foods Market app to learn more.
All right, we're back. We're back with my guest, Ryan Arnold. Ryan Arnold is here in New York from Chicago. I want to subject Ryan to my weekly wine list, but I just wanted to ask him a few more questions. So, attitudinally, and we covered this a little, Psalms in New York and Psalms in Chicago. Is it that Midwest thing? Or what is it? I mean, do New York guys think they're the bomb and the rest of the world just follows? I mean, you could answer that.
Ooh, wow.
You don't aspire to be in New York, do you? Come on, we could diss a few people.
No. There was just a Psalm showdown through the James Beard Foundation, I think it was. Yeah, New York beat up Chicago, but no. I mean, this city definitely has some of the most talented.
Well, that goes with the territory. I mean, there's more people and all that. But
True.
like I said earlier, I think because it's become a restaurant town recognition, I also think, and we didn't cover it, but the distributors and wine guys now realize, because Chicago's a wine town, they realize maybe, they got to make a move and all of that.
Well, there's some New York Psalms that say Chicago is a beer and a shot town, not necessarily a good wine town.
Meantime, a lot of Psalms, when they get off, all they want is a beer and a shot. So what the F is wrong with that, right? I mean, come on. All right. We're taping this show now. We're in the middle of October. We're going to run the show the week of Thanksgiving. So while I have Ryan here, I'm going to ask him one last question, and then we'll do the wine list. Keep it down to 1 or 2 wines. You got to answer this question simplistically. We're going into Thanksgiving week. And everybody who gives a crap about wine, will call me or probably nudge you and go, what do I drink, with turkey or this and that? But it doesn't go with sweet potatoes. So let's pick the 1, 2, or 3 best wines to throw out on the table for a Thanksgiving dinner, taking into consideration traditional turkey, sides, maybe there's, I don't know, a prime rib or something. What do we put? Give me the best choices. They don't have to be traditional. They have to be good and interesting.
Yeah, I'd say go with Central and Southern Rhone Valley.
Okay. Rhone Valley is France. There's a North and South Rhone. Châteauneuf-du-Pape is south. The north is Cornas, Saint Joseph, all that stuff. Those reds?
Yeah, there's a cool little area called Gigondas.
G-I-G, we got to spell for
Ondas.
Great.
Yes.
That would be a good Thanksgiving wine.
Yeah, lots of Grenache. Almost all Grenache with a touch of Syrah.
There you go. So Grenache. Tell me a little about the Grenache grape and why it's good with turkey.
Oh, I love Grenache because you've got, it's kind of similar to Pinot. It grows in warmer climates and can build alcohol a little bit quicker. But you get a lot of red fruits, strawberry, cherries. You don't have, sometimes you don't have the tannin structure, which I think makes it good with turkey.
So so Gigondas from the Rhone, which is a Grenache-based wine. That's number 1. Give me another one.
After that, go with a little geekier Cerasuolo down in Sicily.
Okay, so Cerasuolo, don't spell like it sounds. It's Cerasuo.
Hello.
Cerasuolo, and that's the grape, right?
So Cerasuolo, it's actually an appellation called Cerasuolo di Vittoria, which is an appellation on the island of Sicily, and the grapes can be comprised of Nero d'Avola and Frappato.
Okay, 2 great grapes, 2 great food grapes.
Absolutely.
So that
inexpensive-ish too.
That's another great choice, right? Yeah, definitely value. What about if somebody wanted white or rosé? Do we even put that out on the table for Thanksgiving?
Oh, yeah,
or?
for sure.
So-
Check out. Well, here's a curveball. I guess we're just talking about Bordeaux. Pessac Léognan. Check out some whites from down there. Sauve Blanc and Semillon.
So Pessac Léognan is Bordeaux?
Yes.
Okay. And Semillon, the grape. So it's a Bordeaux white.
Bordeaux Blanc. Exactly.
Bordeaux Blanc. Okay. Is that from Grave or?
Yeah, it's just south of. There's Grave and then Pessac, 2 different areas.
And they're
down there.
generally value price wines,
Absolutely.
compared to fancy. So the third recommendation is a white from Bordeaux, Pessac Léognan. So those are good ones. So now when someone asks you, what should I do for Thanksgiving? Ryan just hooked you up. You could thank him and me if you want to. All right, Ryan, thank you for those suggestions. Now I want to get into your tastes. We do the wine list every week. Let's do a special Chicago edition. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions and just kind of buzz through them. You don't have to dwell on them. What are you drinking now? Not this second, but I'm sure it's seasonal and you're tasting things. What's on the table now for you, the restaurant?
Yeah, for sure. I'm tasting every day. What I'm drinking and have been for the last year is almost exclusively white wines. Almost exclusively white wines.
Around the world or focused in on a...
Pretty focused. I've been, I fell in love with the Gruner Veltliner back in 05, 06, 07. We kind of had a falling out, and I'm back on to Gruner.
That's an Austrian white, terrific food wine, right?
Yeah,
but it could be from other places. But Austria's...
Yeah, there's a little bit. I pour one from Edna Valley, California.
Give me a reco on that.
Oh, go with, producer-wise, if you want
Yeah.
to stay value-driven, Domaine Wachau. It's actually a historic...
Wachau?
Yes, historic
Okay.
co-op, but you can find some really cool Federspiel and Schmaragd level.
Schmaragd is S-M-A-R-G-D.
S-M-A-R-A-G-D. Yeah.
A-G-D. I mean, this stuff just doesn't spell like it sounds or whatever. All right, give me one more.
Another white.
Not necessarily white.
Okay.
Give me what you're drinking now. You know what?
Always my weak spot is Chablis.
Okay.
I drink it almost nightly.
Fancy schmancy or
No, AC level. There's a producer called Laurent Tribut.
spell tribute?
Tribut.
Okay.
And you can get village level like AC Chablis for maybe wholesale, maybe $28 or so.
So that's what retail.
Yeah, you probably
$50.
Yeah, you probably find it
All
for
right, so
45.
that's not expensive, not cheap, but a better, quality. All right, good choices. Let's move along. Tell me Ryan Arnold's favorite wine and food pairing. Something you've done more than once, something that you go, oh, wow, something you like, something that makes sense.
It's got to be in case meats. It's got to be bratwursts. I'm from Chicago, and
So bratwurst and what?
bratwurst and probably Gamay. Probably simple, easy drinking, quaffable Beaujolais.
Are you a big Gamay fan? The grape?
Yeah, I like it.
Beaujolais?
I like it for sure. It's super versatile in pairings. It's a fun go-to.
So bratwurst, a grilled bratwurst with a glass of Beaujolais
Yeah.
Gamay. Nice. Everything feeds off
Not
each
so
other.
obvious. You have the salty
I love
pork-based
that.
brat. Yeah.
You get smacked here if you say champagne and oysters. So we love the fact bratwurst and Gamay is, that's a good choice. All right. This is the Chicago edition part. Favorite wine restaurant and or bar, okay? Outside of Lettuce, you don't have to patronize them. A place where you, who's an expert, recognizes the selection, the service, the attention towards it. Give me a place in Chicago and then pick anywhere else, that impressed you.
Okay. In Chicago right now, it's probably Giant. So Giant is in Logan Square. They are very focused with their selections.
Now, is that a wine bar restaurant?
It is. It's a restaurant, small,
Okay.
like maybe 45-seat restaurant.
That's the casual dining out a little from Chicago that we were talking about
Yeah,
with
exactly.
a very cool wine list.
And I like their attention to detail with temperature of wine and the way they serve it. They definitely there's a culture in that restaurant. They take it serious.
Okay, that's a good one. So that's Giant. That's in Logan Square. Logan Square, is it? Or
Correct.
Logan?
Correct.
Now, Logan Square is considered Chicago?
Yep, just outside the main.
Just outside, right. Give me something in your travels outside of Chicago.
Outside of Chicago.
Could be anywhere. Could be Paris, could be Brooklyn, could be Kansas.
I mean, one of my happy places is Pasquale Jones.
Okay, so New York, Pasquale.
Sitting at the bar right there.
That's a good one. And by the way, it comes up on this show, more than
I'm
a
sure.
few times.
I'm sure it does.
Because it makes sense.
Yeah,
you
they're
know,
just killing every aspect.
All right, give me Ryan Arnold's favorite all-time wine. Can you narrow it down to one, or give me one or two?
Well, you know what? On my Uber ride over here from Williamsburg, I was thinking about that because I thought you might ask that question.
Okay.
And the reason
Even though you cheated. Go ahead.
And it's more than ironic because it's made by the producer of this wine that you brought on the show today.
Parole Torte
Yes,
or Montever?
yes.
That.
So I almost started to cry when I saw this here. Yeah.
Okay,
the
I couldn't
Pergolese-
understand when we're going to taste a wine for the weekly wine sip, but Ryan sort of he reacted strangely, and we'll explain when we taste it. So your favorite all-time wine is?
Montevertine Le Pergole Torte, 1997.
So Montevertine is the area in Tuscany. The maker is?
So Montevertine, the estate, and then the
estate.
Pergole Torte is one of their vineyard sites.
Right. And it is a Sangiovese.
Yep, it's Sangiovese.
100%?
There's a little bit of, I believe, a Canaiolo, maybe some Colorino. They're not using any French varietals.
This is baby that. So
It
we'll
is,
talk about it when we
exactly.
taste it. All right. My kids are in their mid-20s. They're starting to make money. They're going to parties, dinners, and all that. They got to bring a couple of bottles of wine over to a friend for a nice dinner. They don't want to show up with crap. Give me your best recommendation retail for a red and a white, 15-ish. You can go up, not down. Let's start
15-ish?
with a red.
Okay.
Retail.
Retail for $15, I would bring, you got to bring bubbles. You got to bring, I think, Cava.
Okay.
Check out Cava. Everyone's
I like
into
the bubbles thing, so the way to break through bubbles is a cheap bubble cava.
Just don't bring Prosecco.
I was just going to say, you're the Italian wine guy lover. Why not Prosecco?
Maybe Franciacorta.
Okay, why? It's just crappy when it's cheap?
It's Franciacorta for, I think, when you're spending 15 to 20, you get a hell of a lot of wine.
Okay.
And it's less sugar. You know, most Prosecco's bottled extra dry,
Right.
which is sweeter than brut.
So that's our white, a cava. Bring the bubbly, that's fun. Goes with tons of food.
Or Franciacorta.
Or Franciacorta. And give me a red, $15 a roundish.
Try to find, have you ever had Steve Mathiassen's Tendu?
I have had it. It's
Barbera
TNDU,
Yeah, it's a liter bottle.
right?
You know, it's cool. I just met the national buyer for Whole Foods, this gentleman, Doug Bell, and we were talking about a new section they created. I think it's probably over now, but it's chilled reds. So reds you can kind of put a bit of a chill on that are pretty easy drinking. But the Tendu is a 1 liter bottle with a crown cap. So super good wine, and you'd be the conversation of the party.
So Steve Mathiassen's one of the cool winemakers, critically acclaimed in California. He makes a value price wine. It comes in a liter bottle.
In a liter bottle, yep, a white and a red.
Tendu, the red. The white is what grape?
It's predominantly Vermentino, I believe. on
Okay,
the white,
which we
yeah.
were talking about before. Cool grape from coastal Italy. What's the red?
The red, it's a Barbera blend.
Okay, a little different. All right, last question, and then we'll go into the weekly wine sip. Do you have a favorite wine and food city outside of Chicago?
Outside of Chicago,
Could be domestic or beyond.
I have to say Portland, Oregon.
Portland?
Yeah.
Why? I mean, a couple of places obviously resonate with you.
The the technique, the access to the produce that they have at their fingertips. I mean, everything out there is just super fresh.
So
and
ingredient
delicious.
driven.
Yeah, I think so for sure.
New York has a little of that with Long Island and upstate. I think Chicago maybe has a little less. I mean, you're growing cows and cheese or whatever
Yeah.
you do with those.
We have great cheese.
But you really recognize it in the Portland.
Absolutely.
And the chefs and restaurants.
Really
do.
creative too. They're tiny restaurants. They actually kind of remind me of Roberta's here.
Yeah.
And wacky wine list too.
And I was just going to say, and wine service that goes along with it.
Well, service is a
Wacky in
whole
the
nother.
sense-
There is no such thing as good service in Portland.
Really?
The
That's not their
hospitality
thing?
is kind of missing. Yeah.
Okay. That'll be for another episode. All right. So those are Ryan's choices, some good ones. We'll post them on our social media. I'll tell you where at the end of the show. We're going to close the show with our weekly wine sip. Every week we taste a different wine on air. For our weekly wine sip this week, we're going to taste the 2013 Pian del Ciampolo from Montevertine, an Italian wine from Tuscany. It's made up of almost 90% Sangiovese with some Canaiolo and Colorino grapes. This wine and other vintages, earlier and later, retails for about $28, $35, available at better wine shops. So Ryan, tell me a little more about this wine. This wine, and we attached it to your favorite wine, same people. But is this a baby La Pergolo?
Yeah, I mean
Olé?
this is, and I can't see this wine, smell this wine, and taste it, and not tell people to give Chianti a chance, right? Chianti still kind of has a reputation issue, but the Sangiovese grape, which this is got that tart red fruit, a little bit of
So
smoke.
help me for a second. This wine doesn't have the word Chianti on it anywhere. Why do you say Chianti? Because Chianti is Sangiovese based?
Yeah, and this is
Is this a Chianti-ish type wine?
It could be considered.
Okay.
It technically it is in Chianti, right? Chianti's in between Florence
Okay.
to the north, Siena to the south.
Got you.
And they just don't use the word Chianti. They're not in the
Okay.
consortium.
Now, do some Chiantis use Canaiolo and Colorino, or they're mostly all Sangiovese?
No, they absolutely do. And
They do.
sometimes they're throwing in Merlot, a little bit of Syrah.
Okay.
Back in the day, even white wine.
All right, so let's rate this wine. So let's first give it a sniff. What do you get? Give me some descriptors on the nose.
Just a bowl of fresh red fruit. I mean, this is cranberries, cherries.
All right, so it's predominantly a red fruit
I think
wine.
it's driven by red fruit on the nose for sure.
I agree with you on that, and it does have a little of that the tartness of the cranberry. Not just your raspberry, strawberry,
Right.
and cherry. There's that tartness. Let's go color. Typical of a Chianti. To me, it looks a little lighter.
Which is typical of Chianti.
Okay.
So now you can tell Chianti if they've messed around with it and put in a non-native varietal like say Merlot. It
Darkens it up.
darkens it up a little bit. It should Sangiovese should look like this.
So how do you describe this color? It's kind of a dark red,
It's more of a pale
red.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a translucent.
Almost. I mean, it looks like you could mistake it for Pinot Noir too.
Yeah, definitely translucent. Definitely, red. All right, let's go mouthfeel. Tell me if this is a traditional Sangiovese mouthfeel. Is it medium, light, heavy?
Light to medium bodied.
So medium minus.
Medium minus. There you go. The Somm talk. This has, a hell of a lot more tannin than I remember it in the past. And typically,
Good or bad?
in the long run, I think good. Would
Okay.
I serve this wine at dinner tomorrow night? Probably not.
So it's a 13. You could sit in the cellar for a couple
Yeah,
years.
I would say
The
so.
tannins will calm down. All right, so let's talk palate. What are we getting on the palate? Are those red fruits translating to the palate?
100%. And this is it's making me salivate too. I mean, there's the brightness and the condition of the fruit, super high toned. For red wine, medium plus acidity.
What about the alcohol?
It's like a rhubbarb characteristic too.
Yeah.
You get that?
Yeah.
Alcohol is moderate. It's
I get
not
it more
coming
on the
through.
nose than the palate, believe it or not.
Probably what 13.5 maybe. Not sure.
You check the bottle. All right, so what foods would we pair this with?
Cacio e pepe.
Cacio e pepe, which is a white cheese pasta with pepper.
It is-
So it's got spice and richness.
Little tiny bit of spice from the black pepper. It's the pasta that really chefs, they say. If you know
Is
how to
that
make
like
pasta.
a great pairing for this?
Yeah, I think with the fat in there, or carbonara, even something, butter
Carbonara?
sauce, fat, these
Okay.
tannins would kind of help that.
All right, anything else that
You could also do salmon.
salmon?
Yeah, you could do
It's pretty good salmon wine.
roasted or
Instead
grilled
of a
salmon.
Pinot or something. Yeah, that's a good call because there's a little fat in the salmon, which this will cut through. All right, so I always ask my guests, do we like this wine? Do we love it? Do we not like it? What do you think?
I really like it when you take it in the context of what the price is.
Right,
I think I love it.
right. The reason I brought it in is because it's a baby Le Pergola. I think it's a delicious wine. It's a good blend. Like you said, it's a 13. Could have pulled it out a couple of years from now, and it would have been even nice. All right, so that's the 2013 Pian del Ciampolo from Montevertine, an Italian wine from Tuscany, predominantly Sangiovese. All right, Ryan, we're going to wrap up the show. If you have a question, wine happening, or event, hit me up at samatthegrapenation.com. That's samatthegrapenation.com. Follow us on Facebook at The Grape Nation. We'll post Ryan's wine list answers, and we'll post the weekly wine sip that we tasted.
And hopefully the correct spelling that I made.
We'll get all of that. Ryan and I will work that out off air. I won't let him leave. Follow us on Instagram at SBenRuby and Twitter at BenRuby. Ryan, if we want to follow you on social, Ryan, let us.
It's wine, WINE _ Ryan, RYAN.
Wine Ryan, very original.
At Instagram and
I
Twitter.
guess Ryan Arnold wasn't available. That's okay.
Taken.
Taken. And listen, what you do every day is, you work for some interesting, great people. Let us entertain you. If they wanted to just explore and find out more, where should they go there?
Lettuce actually has a pretty awesome Instagram handle too. Lettuce Entertain You.
Okay.
Website too, but I'd say check them out on Instagram.
So it's LETTUCE.
Exactly.
Us Entertain You, which is LEYE. That's not the Instagram, but Let Us Entertain You. That's the Instagram.
Yes.
Okay. And website?
Website's good. I think the
Okay.
Instagram's better.
Okay. So that's wine _ Ryan to talk to Ryan. All right, Ryan, I want to thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
I was happy to find out you were in from Chicago, meet somebody that wasn't from New York. You seem to be much calmer and more grounded. You have that Midwest mentality. I'm joking. I actually went to school at University of Wisconsin, so I got that dose for 4 years of that stuff. Yeah. I want to thank our engineer, Vitor, and I want to thank everyone at the Heritage Radio Network. I'm Sam BenRuby, and you've been listening to The Grape Nation.
Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content and to hear about exclusive events, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at heritage_radio. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be a part of the food world's most innovative community? Rate the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join our community by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. Thanks for listening.